Hi everyone. Today we're going to get into discussing Adobe Illustrator and what it can do for us. Illustrator is going to be really useful to you in your whole academic career here at UCalgary. So let's get into some of the basics of it today. Now, Adobe Illustrator is a vector graphics editor and design program that's going to help you in producing really high quality graphics. Now, you might have heard the term vector at different points in your academic career. In this context, vector images are formed from combinations of individual objects consisting of points, lines, and colors. Therefore, the size of an image or shape doesn't affect the quality of the displayed image because it isn't dependent on image resolution. This is the main difference between vector and raster graphics. While vector graphics are composed of paths, a raster graphic, which we'll be covering more so in the Photoshop section, which includes things like GIFs or JPEGs, are arrays of pixels of various colors, which together form an image. Today we're going to get into discussing some of the basics of crafting a vector file in Adobe Illustrator. So once you have Illustrator open, we can get started. You can simply start by moving up to the New File command, left-clicking, and then specifying how large you'd like your board to be. For the sake of demonstration, and so that it's consistent with the AutoCAD page setups that we looked at, let's make the width of this page we're going to create 36 inches and the height 24 inches. So we'll stick with the ArcD size. You also have the option, as you can see, you also have the option to adjust your units. If you move over to this drop-down menu here on the right, you can adjust it to any unit you're looking for, metric or imperial. In this case, let's just stick with inches. Hit left click. We have the option to adjust orientation, portrait or landscape, and change how many artboards we actually want. For now, we're going to keep it to one artboard and keep the orientation to landscape. If this all looks good, we're going to move down to create and open our board. So as you can see, now we're into our document. Once you're in the document, you can pan around it by hitting spacebar, left click, and dragging with your left click held down. To pan up and down the page, simply use your middle scroll wheel to pan down and up. If you want to pan to the left and right, you still use your scroll wheel, but you hold Control down, and then you use your scroll wheel to pan left and right. Now, our key organization tool in Illustrator is our Layers panel. Now, much like in AutoCAD, layers basically let us keep different pieces of information in our file on different layers so they can be turned on and off or adjusted individually. As you can see, you've got a bar of your key tools over here on the right-hand side of your screen. You get to the layers by selecting this icon right here. The two little squares here will open your Layers panel. You can hide or show layers based on what you want to see. For now, let's turn all three of these on. To turn your layer on, simply left-click the far left cell here, and the eye icon indicates that it's visible. If we turn on all three, so you can show layers, you can lock layers so that you don't want them to be directly editable, or unlock them if you want to edit them. Layers on top will show that item in the layer on top. So as you can see, this green layer is at the top, meaning that information would be shown on top as well. Watch what happens if we click this layer, green, and we left click and drag it down to the bottom. As you can see, it's no longer at the top, which means it's no longer at the top of our artboard in terms of what we're viewing in our document. If you ever want to delete a layer, simply select it and left click and hold and drag down to the trash can at the bottom of the layer panel. We'll do that to all three of these. We'll clean up our board, and then we'll get into doing some drawing. Now let's get into drawing some basic shapes. We can start by drawing a rectangle. Let's move over to our posable toolbar here on the left. Move down to the rectangular icon you see right here. Now, really quickly, if you right-click, you'll see there's a myriad of different options that all come up for different shapes that we can draw. For now, let's just pick the rectangle tool. Once we have that selected, there's something for you to keep in mind. When we're drawing rectangles in Illustrator, it's different from drawing them in AutoCAD, where previously we clicked once to specify the starting corner and clicked again to specify the opposite corner. In this case, we're going to simply click once and hold and drag to get the shape that we want. Now have a look at the toolbar at the top of the screen up here. As you can see, it's changed. Now that we've drawn a shape, we can see the color of the fill right here, and we can see the color of the outline over here. Now as you can see, you can drop down and change the color of either. If I want to change this outline to red, I can do so. If I want to change the color of the fill to orange, I can also do so. I'm also able to change the thickness of the outline to be very thin or as thick as I want it to be. Now let's say we want to change the shape of this rectangle a little bit. That's very easily done. We're simply going to do this by selecting it, moving over to the selection tool. Okay, it's already selected, but just so you know, this is what the selection tool does, and here's where it is. Once we have the selection tool selected, then we can grab a corner and transform it as much as we want to. Simply click and hold, and you can adjust that corner and the adjoining faces as much as you want to. To scale, you can simply click the shape with the selection tool activated, grab a corner, hold shift down, and then move your cursor as you like to. That will scale it proportionately. If I click that corner and instead of holding shift, holding alt, it will basically scale from 2 axes. Let's try drawing another shape. Move over to the posable toolbar and move over to the rectangle shape tool. This time we're going to right click, we're going to move down this little drop down list, and we're going to move to star. Let's left click, move over to our artboard, click and hold to draw a 5-pointed star. Now here's a cool trick. Don't let go quite yet. Instead, use the up key to add another point to that star. You can add as many points as you want. Or, with the click still held, you can use the down key to reduce the number of points. You can reduce it all the way down to a triangle if you wish. Now we're going to move that star tool over because now it's time for us to try something else. To move something, we're going to make sure that we have our selection tool activated. We're going to click the item we want to move, left click, and if we simply click and drag, we can bring the whole object we've drawn with us. Now let's say we want to manipulate a corner of this triangle, but we can't do it with the selection tool activated. Here's what we're going to do. Instead, we're going to move over to our posable toolbar and we're going to select the direct selection tool, which is going to let us actually manipulate points on this triangle. Alternatively, you can click the triangle and simply hit A to activate the direct select function. To manipulate any of these points, left click, click the point that you want to manipulate, and then click with that point selected and drag as you need to. As you can see, these other points here are all hollow and white, whereas this one actively being manipulated is in blue. So that one is the one we can manipulate with the direct select tool. We'll grab it and we can pull it as much as we wish. Now let's say we want to select multiple corners of this edited triangle. We can do that very easily with the lasso tool. So what we can do is let's move over to the posable toolbar, left click lasso tool, and move over to our triangle. Now we're going to click and hold to start dragging our lasso. Left click, drag over every point that we want to be able to manipulate here. Then we complete our lasso, release, and as you can see, these 3 vertices here are all now active and ready to be moved with the direct select tool. These 3 hollow ones will not. So now that we've got those 3 selected with the lasso tool, let's move back up to the toolbar. Let's left click, direct selection tool, move over to our triangle and grab any of these three that we now currently have selected. We'll grab this one for demonstration's sake. Left click and hold and drag. And as you can see, all three of those that we just grabbed with the lasso tool will now move with us. Release by simply letting go of your left click. Now let's say we want to change this shape even more by adding some more vertices. This can also be done very easily with the direct select tool. Let's left click, either move up to the posable toolbar and select direct selection, or just hit A to get to direct select and move towards any of the paths on your shape. Now to add a vertice, simply move over to the plus sign on your keyboard, hit plus, and now you have an option to add another vertice anywhere along this path, any of these paths. Let's try one here. Simply left click, and now we have another vertice that we can manipulate. Let's add another one. Simply left click again. Now let's say we want to take one of these points away. As you can probably guess, using the minus key also offers a function in direct selection. Let's try hitting minus key right now. Watch what happens. Now it's going to give us an option to remove a vertice. We can pick any one of these, and left clicking it will remove it. Let's try it with this one right here. Let's left click, and just like that, that vertice has been removed. We can remove as many of these as we want. If we remove this one, obviously it changes the shape substantially because that vertice is not there anymore. To bring that point back, we can hit Control Z, and you can undo as many added or subtracted vertices with the direct selection tool that you want. Let's escape that by moving over to the selection tool. Now in Illustrator, being able to draw shapes with the line tool is going to be incredibly valuable, as it'll allow you to make shapes that are as unique as you want them to be. Let's move over to the posable toolbar. Now as you run through these, you might notice that the pen tool isn't immediately jumping out at you. That's okay. That's because it's currently right here. Anchor point tools are a function of the pen tool, so if we right click, as you can see, the pen tool is right there. It's the default option. Alternatively, you can simply hit P to activate the pen tool. The cursor's changed to a pen, meaning the pen tool is active. Start drawing a path with your pen tool. Left click, and as you can see, you can begin drawing. The first and second points you click will form a straight line in your path. By clicking and dragging, you can form a curve. By continuing to hold on when you left click, you can essentially manipulate the arc of that curve. You can continue to select points until you're ready to complete your shape, in which case you can bring the end of your path back to your original anchor point to complete it. If you're interested in drawing an object that has a more flowing, curved, and organic shape to it, you can do that very easily by simply looking a little further down the posable toolbar to the Curvature Tool. It works fundamentally the same as the pen tool, except it has a proclivity to draw curves. Left click to activate it and move over to your artboard. To start drawing, much like with the pen tool, simply left click, select your second point, and once you left click, it's going to automatically want to make your third point something that serves as an end point between the arc and the starting point of your first 2 points. Left click again to see what I mean. So as you can see, it wants to draw a curve essentially based on the points that you give it. It'll naturally default to continuing to draw a curve that's going to continue to flow as you continue selecting points. Now, if you wish for this curve to have an abrupt straight line that ends that curvature, simply hold down Alt, and the next point you click after selecting previous point will be a straight line in any direction you wish. By continuing to hold down Alt, you will continue to draw straight lines, even with the Curvature tool selected. To return to drawing your curvature, simply release the Alt key, and when you click, your next points will subsequently be curved. Let's complete that shape by bringing it back to the original anchor point. Left click. To escape the Curvature tool, you can move over to the Selection tool, or simply hit V to return to the selection tool as well. We've only covered a couple of the really simple tools that you can use in Adobe Illustrator. However, there will be plenty of time for us to get into many more functions that will be useful to you in your upcoming projects.